Emily had always been different from most of the young women in the small town. She was independent, strong-willed, and never afraid to get her hands dirty. Her days were long and full, working on the sprawling ranch her family had maintained for generations. She loved the land, the animals, and the quiet rhythm of life outside the busy town streets. Many admired her from afar, but very few truly understood her. She was not looking for attention or praise. She wanted respect and the freedom to live her life on her own terms. The ranch was a busy place, and there was always something that needed fixing. Fences had to be mended, horses had to be fed, and the cattle had to be guided from one pasture to another. Emily knew the routine by heart. She moved confidently through the day, her boots kicking up dust as she worked. People often underestimated her because of her youth and her gentle way of speaking. But anyone who watched her for even a short while would see the determination in her eyes and the strength in her hands. One morning, a new worker arrived at the ranch. His name was Jake, and he had the quiet, steady presence of someone who had spent years working with horses and cattle. He was tall, with strong shoulders and hands that looked like they could handle anything. His dark hair was always slightly messy from the wind, and his eyes carried a calm intelligence. But unlike the others, Jake did not feel the need to show off or act tough. He was quiet, patient, and observant. The moment the ranch hands saw him, they began whispering among themselves. "He's a real cowboy," one said. "I bet he's going to make Emily his in no time," another joked. Emily overheard the comments and rolled her eyes. She had heard similar things all her life. People always assumed she would be claimed or won over by someone strong and confident. Someone like Jake. She had long ago stopped caring what others thought. Jake did not approach Emily with words meant to impress or charm her. He did not boast about his strength or his experience. Instead, he observed quietly, learning the rhythm of the ranch and the ways Emily managed the work. When a problem arose, he offered practical solutions, and always asked for her opinion. If a fence needed repair, he would ask, "Emily, do you think it would be better to start here or there?" He treated her ideas with respect, even when they differed from his own. Emily found herself surprised by this. No one had ever asked for her advice and actually listened. She had grown used to people assuming they knew best, thinking she needed guidance. But Jake's respect was different. It was not just politeness. It was genuine acknowledgement of her skills and knowledge. Slowly, she started to pay attention to him. Days turned into weeks, and Emily and Jake found themselves working side by side more often. They repaired fences, tended to the horses, and guided the cattle together. During these tasks, their conversations were light but meaningful. They spoke about the animals, the changing seasons, and the little details of ranch life. Jake never pressured her, never made a comment that suggested she should feel or act differently. He treated her as an equal, and that was something Emily had rarely experienced. Other ranch hands noticed the growing bond and whispered their assumptions more loudly. "See? He's going to sweep her off her feet," one said. "She'll have no choice." Emily heard them, but she did not respond. She was not interested in their opinions or predictions. What mattered to her was the way Jake treated her, the trust he showed, and the way he respected her independence. One afternoon, the sun was setting over the wide fields, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Emily was checking the water troughs when Jake rode up on his horse. He tipped his hat politely and asked, "Do you want some help finishing the last fence?" She smiled and nodded, grateful for his company. As they worked together, their conversation shifted to their pasts. Emily spoke about growing up on the ranch, her dreams, and the challenges she had faced. She was careful, though, not to share too much. Jake listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging. When it was his turn, he spoke quietly about his life, about learning to care for animals, and about the importance of hard work and honesty. There was no bragging, no attempts to impress, only sincerity. Emily realized she was beginning to trust him. It was a trust that had taken time to grow, built not on words, but on actions. He treated her with patience when she made mistakes, offered guidance when asked, and never assumed that he knew better than she did. He showed her that respect could be more meaningful than charm or attention. One evening, after a long day of work, they both sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. The ranch was quiet, except for the occasional call of a distant owl. Emily thought about the rumors, the whispers, and the expectations that others had placed on her. She realized that they did not matter. What mattered was the way Jake saw her, not as someone to win over, but as a person to value and respect. Over the following days, Emily noticed small gestures that made her feel seen. Jake remembered details she had mentioned in passing about her favorite horse, or how she liked her coffee in the morning. He checked on the younger ranch hands and offered to help without being asked. Emily admired the way he treated everyone with fairness, never seeking recognition. Emily also noticed that Jake never tried to impress her with stories or feats. He never acted in a way to make her feel indebted or obligated. In a world where people often tried to dominate or control, his restraint and respect felt like a breath of fresh air. She began to understand that he was different from the men she had known before, someone who did not need to claim her to show his worth. One morning, as Emily fed the horses, she found herself thinking about how much she had come to rely on Jake's presence. She did not need him to entertain her or to prove anything. She simply appreciated his honesty, his steady nature, and his respect for her independence. She realized that perhaps this was a connection worth exploring, not because someone told her to, but because she wanted to. The ranch continued its daily routine, full of challenges and small victories. Emily and Jake worked side by side, facing each day together without rushing or forcing anything. Their growing bond was quiet but strong, built on shared experiences, trust, and respect. Other ranch hands still whispered, still made predictions, but Emily paid them no mind. She had learned that respect and understanding mattered far more than rumors or assumptions. By the end of the first part of their story, Emily felt a new sense of possibility. She saw in Jake someone who understood her, someone who valued her choices, and someone who could be a partner without trying to control her. She began to feel that love or companionship could be different from what she had always expected. Built not on possession or assumptions, but on mutual respect and genuine connection. For Emily, this was only the beginning. The ranch was still full of work and challenges, but she faced each day with a renewed sense of hope. She had met someone who honored her independence and treated her as an equal. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to consider that perhaps, when the time was right, she could choose freely, without pressure, without expectation, and without losing herself. The days on the ranch went by with the usual rhythm, but a change in the weather brought a tension that was different from the ordinary challenges. Dark clouds had been gathering over the horizon for hours, and the wind was beginning to howl through the open fields. Emily noticed the first drops of rain as she checked on the horses, and a shiver ran down her spine. Storms were not uncommon, but this one felt stronger, more urgent. She knew the cattle would need to be guided to safer pastures, and that the younger animals might panic. Jake arrived just as the rain began to fall in earnest. His horse stomped in the mud, but he kept a calm expression. "We need to get the animals under shelter," he said. There was no panic in his voice, only focus. Emily nodded, gripping the reins of a nervous mare. Together, they began rounding up the cattle, calling to the horses, and checking that every animal was accounted for. The storm grew fiercer by the minute. Rain pelted down in sheets, and the wind bent the trees until their branches threatened to break. Mud made the ground slippery, and the animals grew anxious. Emily and Jake worked tirelessly, side by side, moving from one task to the next. They shouted instructions to the ranch hands, but most of the heavy lifting fell on them. In the midst of the chaos, Emily realized just how much she relied on Jake. His presence was steady and calm, a stark contrast to the panic of the storm. He never lost his patience with her or the animals. When a calf slipped in the mud, he helped lift it without a single word of complaint. When Emily herself struggled to hold a frightened horse, he stood close by, ready to assist, but never overstepping or taking control. Every move he made was careful, precise, and considerate. Hours passed, and the storm showed no signs of easing. Emily felt exhausted, her clothes soaked through, but she kept moving, driven by determination and the need to protect the animals. At one point, she stumbled on the slippery ground, and Jake caught her arm just in time. Their eyes met, and for a moment, there was a silent understanding between them. No one else could have helped her feel safe like he did, and she knew it. By late afternoon, the worst of the storm had passed. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the wind had softened. The cattle were finally settled in the sheltered areas of the ranch, and the horses were calm. Emily wiped her hands on her sleeves and let out a long sigh. She looked around at the mess left by the storm-fallen branches, puddles of mud, and scattered hay, and realized how much they had accomplished together. Jake approached, his clothes just as wet as hers. He offered a small, tired smile. "We did it," he said simply. Emily nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. It was not just the relief that the animals were safe. It was the realization that in every difficult moment, Jake had been by her side without ever trying to take over or belittle her efforts. That evening, as the sun began to peek through the clouds, Emily and Jake sat on the porch of the ranch house, their boots still muddy and their hair damp from the storm. The quiet after the chaos was almost magical. The air smelled of wet earth and fresh grass, and the last birds of the day chirped softly. Emily looked at Jake, feeling a mixture of admiration and something deeper she had not allowed herself to name before. "You were amazing today," she said quietly. Jake shrugged slightly, but there was a sincerity in his gaze. "We did it together. You know your animals better than anyone. I just helped where I could." Cry. Emily smiled, realizing that this was the difference between him and others she had known. He did not speak to impress her, or to make her feel indebted. He simply acknowledged her skill and shared the responsibility. She felt seen, appreciated, and respected in a way that went far beyond words. Over the next few days, life on the ranch returned to its normal pace, but Emily noticed subtle changes in herself. She found herself looking for Jake's presence, not because she needed him to lead or protect her, but because she enjoyed his company and valued his perspective. He continued to show her respect, listening when she spoke, learning from her experience, and offering help when she asked. There was no pressure, no assumptions, just steady, thoughtful support. One afternoon, they took a break by the river that ran along the edge of the property. "It's peaceful, and it reminds me why I enjoy this work." Emily nodded. "I feel the same. It's the little things, the quiet moments, that matter." They sat in silence for a while, the only sounds being the gentle flow of the river and the distant calls of birds. Emily realized that she trusted Jake completely, not just with the animals, but with herself. There was no fear, no uncertainty, only a sense of calm and understanding that was rare in her life. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the water, Jake spoke again. "Emily, I want you to know something. I respect you, not because you're impressive or because others think you're someone to be won. I respect you because of who you are. Your independence, your strength, your kindness. Those are the things that matter to me." Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. No one had ever said anything like that to her. She realized that love or connection could be different from what people expected. It did not have to be about claiming or controlling, it could be about respect, trust, and choice. She took a deep breath and said, I respect you too, Jake, and I think I like being around you. Not because anyone told me I should, but because I want to. Jake smiled. A gentle, genuine smile that reached his eyes. That's all I could ever hope for, he said. I don't want you to ever feel pressured. You should choose freely, in your own time. Emily felt a sense of relief and joy she had never experienced before. For the first time, she realized that she could choose her own path, her own relationships, and her own happiness. She did not have to conform to anyone else's expectations. She could be herself, and that was enough. Over the following weeks, Emily and Jake's bond continued to grow. They shared meals, worked side by side, and enjoyed quiet evenings together. Each day strengthened the trust and respect between them. They laughed, learned from each other, and faced the challenges of ranch life together. Their relationship was not rushed or forced. It developed naturally, grounded in understanding and genuine care. Other ranch hands continued to speculate and whisper, but Emily no longer paid attention. She had learned the value of seeing people for who they truly were, rather than following rumors or assumptions. She had found someone who respected her independence and valued her choices. And that was worth far more than any attention or expectation from others. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, Emily and Jake walked through the pastures together. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the air was filled with the scent of grass and earth. Emily realized that she had chosen Jake freely, not because she had to, not because anyone expected her to, but because she wanted to. In that moment, she felt a quiet happiness settle in her heart. It was a happiness built on trust, respect, and freedom. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as partners, as equals, and as people who valued each other for who they truly were. And so, what began as quiet days of work on the ranch had grown into something deeper. Emily had learned that true connection was not about being claimed or won over. It was about respect, choice, and understanding. And in Jake, she had found someone who embodied all of those qualities. For Emily, this was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter in which she could be herself, love freely, and trust that the bond she shared with Jake was built on something far stronger than expectation. It was built on respect, care, and mutual understanding. And for Jake, it was the reward of patience, kindness, and genuine regard for another person's heart. Together, they walked toward the horizon, not bound by assumptions or pressure, but connected by choice, trust, and the quiet joy of being seen and valued for exactly who they were.